Hi, this is the tutorial for DIY number 4, the space fly-through. We're going to get right into it by importing the supplied Illustrator file on Learning Suite called Grid Space Parts. And we are going to import it as usual as a composition retaining layer sizes. By the way, if you notice my voice is a little bit more echoey or far away, it's because I'm recording this in my office. And there's less carpet in here. Okay, we have something that looks like this. A lot of spacey words, and we've got a grid, and we've got some circles, and we basically need to create a camera and fly through all this. What are we going to create, you might ask? Let me show you. Okay, this is the movie we will be creating. There's no music, although you can put spacey music to it if you'd like. Basically just a Z-axis push through with our camera with some vertical movement. As well as we've got these circles here that are, let's see, using the trim paths operation. They are shape layers and we're using trim paths to get them to rotate around like that. Which is easy. If you've done it before, you know how easy that is. So I'm going to walk you through it. Alright, back to After Effects. One thing we are going to need to switch back and forth between is the one view. Since I've got such a small screen here, I'm going to be using two views. If you have a large screen, if you're not working on your 13-inch laptop, or maybe you have really good eyes, you might be able to use 4 views. But for this, I'm going to try to get away with just using 2. Okay, first thing we need to do is make all of these layers 3D. And that's pretty easy to do. I'm going to hit Command A down here in my timeline to select all my layers. Then I'm going to click all of these 3D layer switches. As you can see, oh look, we're looking at the top view and we want to be looking at, let's look at the left view. There we go. We can't see anything because, as you know, layers in After Effects are infinitely thin. We have full camera movement, but the layers themselves just look like little pieces of paper in space. They're actually thinner than paper. They have no depth whatsoever. I'll forego the usual Paris Hilton joke. I'm going to add a camera layer by going to Layer, New, Camera. And I'm going to call this, instead of Camera 1, that's kind of generic, I'm going to call it BKB Space Cam. BKB Space Cam. Depth of field enabled, lock to zoom. Okay, let's see. Let's make the preset a 35mm camera and click OK. That's going to appear at the top of our layer stack. You know what? I don't like how my camera is facing this way, so what I'm going to do is change my point of view from left to right. I'm not talking about politics, I'm just talking about orientation in 3D space. Don't worry. Okay, let's see, we should probably get our camera movement in here first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my camera by the blue Z-axis arrow and I'm going to pull back. As you can see over here we are looking at active camera. Right now that's the same as BKB Space Cam, so I'm going to just switch that over explicitly to say BKB Space Cam. And let's scoot back about, well, we don't want it to go too far back, about right there. I'm going to use the width of my composition as a determining factor as to how far we go back here. Okay, if you have done any 3D exercises in my class before, you know that what I like to do when doing a fly-through is to animate the start and the end points of both the camera position and the point of interest. Let's flip down our camera's twirly, flip down transform, and we see that point of interest and position are already highlighted. We are already at 0 on our timeline, so I'm going to keyframe both of them. I'm going to click the stopwatch. Oops. They're already both selected, so I just have to click one of them. How about that? Point of interest and position at this far, well, in our right window anyways, this far left orientation. Let's see, this is going to be, what is it, a 10-second fly-through? Let's go to 10 seconds on our timeline. And since we want the camera and the point of interest to move in sync together, I'm going to grab the camera by the Z-axis, the blue arrow, And I'm going to fly through to about right there. Okay. Now if I zoom out a little bit, in my right view, I can see and set my work area, my timeline, by hitting N. I'm going to RAM preview. Well, that's not going to show us anything at this point, so let's not RAM preview. Let's zoom out. Okay. You know what? I should have done this at the very beginning. We have an odd square composition here. We need to change the composition size. Going to composition settings, or Command K, and I'm going to change the comp from 2000 to 2000 and 2000 to 1920, 1080. There we go. That's something I should have done right away. Sorry about that. All right, from having done this before, I know that I want this layer, the grid, to be a little bit farther back. I want it to be sort of towards the end of our camera's journey here. So I'm going to select that. I'm going to grab it. You probably can't see this. There it is, the blue arrow. I'm going to grab it right there. And this is going to be tricky because I need to see my camera's path. Let's put it back there, and then let's select. Okay, that's pretty good right there. Now what's the problem in this window with the grid? I want it to fill my whole screen, but it's so tiny back there. So what can we do about that? Well, if you know anything about vector layers in After Effects, you know that they can be infinitely scaled. Only if you switch one switch, and that is the continuous rasterized switch, which looks like this. It looks like a little sun with sun rays. So I'm going to select actually all of my layers, my Illustrator layers that will let me select them, including the grid, because grid is what I'm worried about, and I'm going to check the sun switch on all of those layers. That means no matter how close my camera gets to them or how much I scale them up, they should remain crisp. With that being done, I'm going to take my grid now. I'm going to go over here to BKB Space Cam View. Oops. And I'm going to attempt to scale it up. I grab the edges here and I'm holding down Shift until it fills the screen. All right. Now, you know what? That's still not going to... Yep, we're good. I should have gone back to 0 on my timeline first, but it turns out I scaled it just enough so that it's going to work for us. So as you can see, we already look like we're approaching the grid and the layers. But what we need to do is basically distribute all of these words and circles along the z-axis. Now, I could manually take, let's see, how many layers do we have? 20, 50, 51 layers about. We have about 51 layers. Rather than taking my time and your time to individually select them, although this is a completely legitimate way to do it if you have tons of time, take each one and sort of randomly spread it apart in z-space. Maybe move that one up a little bit. Rather than doing that, Command Z, Command Z, Command Z, I'm going to use an expression to randomly place all of these layers at different points throughout z-space. That sounds fun, doesn't it? Let's do that. But before we do that, let's save this file. Save as space, let me calm down, space fly through tutorial. There we go. You should save often in After Effects to cry less. All right, I'm back. You may have noticed a few things have changed a little bit. My voice might not sound as echoey. I'm in a different location now, but I am determined to finish this tutorial today. So let's continue. We need to apply an expression to all of our many layers here to automatically distribute them in z-space, rather than manually positioning them like I think I showed in the previous half of this tutorial. It's all going to seem like one to you, so I apologize for any confusion and or resolution changes. I think the first half of this is going to be a little bit smaller, but now it should be easier to read, and the audio should be easier to hear as well. So expressions in After Effects are JavaScript code used to enhance backup. Don't forget to back up, kids. I back up automatically mostly all of my stuff on Dropbox these days, so that's why I'm not stopping to go back up right now. Does it for you. We need to go out to Learning Suite to copy an expression. Let's go there now. Let's go to 380, and I believe it is on, well, it might vary. I'm not sure when you're going to be watching this, but on the same day that has the source files for DIY number 4, you should find the expression. There we go. Yeah, so DIY number 4 space source files, and then the example movie, and then a link called random z-axis distribution. I'm going to command click that to bring it up in a different tab. And here's the code that we're going to need. Let's just copy it out of here, and I'll explain it more when we get back to After Effects. Okay, so with that code on my clipboard, I'm just going to take this one layer right here. It happens to be Word. Can't really tell which one it is because it's so small right now, but it's not important. To add an expression to you don't add expressions to layers, you add expressions to properties on layers. Now we want to add an expression that is going to automatically randomly distribute the Z position of all of our layers. So I'm going to reveal the position of layer 21 by hitting P. And as you can see, I have the X, Y, and Z position properties located here. To add an expression to a property, you can go to Animation. Let's see, Animation, oops, I have to actually select the position property first. Animation, Add Expression. I can hit Option Shift equals, or most simply, in my opinion, you can Option click the stopwatch for the property onto which you want to write the expression. And when you do that, it writes in the default for this particular property position, it writes in transform.position. However, since I have all that code on the clipboard that I copied off of the browser, the web browser on Learning Suite, I'm going to click off there. There we go. Now we can see it all. Okay, what's actually happening here in this code? If you know anything about JavaScript, this might not look too foreign to you, but if this just frightens you by the mere sight of it, then let me just explain the basics of what's happening here. I mean, these comments explain what's happening, but min z and max z are variables, and they already have a value assigned to them. Negative 2000 and positive 2000 on the z-axis are going to place every layer we apply this expression to somewhere along that continuum. So it's basically a total of 4,000 pixels along the z-axis. So it could end up way out here, it could end up way up there, but back here, but it's going to be math that's going to place it along the z-axis, the blue axis we see here. Okay, so variables, min and max z, and then the rest of these functions, variables, and attributes are what actually place it. Now you're probably wondering to yourself, okay, that's great. Do we have to copy and paste this expression on every single layer in our file in our After Effects project? Rather in our composition. Sorry, it's getting late and I'm losing the ability to speak English. By the end, I'll probably be grunting. We do have to paste it on every single layer, all 50 or whatever we said before, 40. However, there is an easy way to do that all at once. What we're going to do here, by the way, let's click off of this expression and let's click layer 21. Let's zoom out a little bit in our left pane here. I'm going to hit the less than symbol. There we go. This is where it moved whatever that mystery word was to in Z space. It moved it to positive 1912, so almost to the far back extreme. Remember, well, I guess it doesn't make a whole lot of sense from this angle, but positive Z is going to be to the right and negative Z is going to be to the front on the Z-axis. So this little number right here tells us that it's a 1912. So how are we going to copy this and paste it onto all of these layers at the same time. By the way, if you want to change this, if you think that's too far or not far enough, go ahead and change these two values, 1000, 1500. It could be any number you like. I'm going to keep it at 2000 though, negative 2000 and positive 2000. To copy and paste this on all of our layers at once, we have to select the position property. I'm going to go up to Edit, Copy Expression Only. You've probably never noticed that before. I barely ever notice it because I don't use this every day. But what this is going to do is allow us to copy just the expression from layer 21 and then go through all of our layers. We're not going to do grid. We're just going to do these 46 or so layers and go ahead and paste. And what that is going to do, look at that, the magic, I tell you. It's going to place all of these layers. It's not going to change any of their other positions except for Z position. But it's beautiful. It's beautiful to me. When I unveil the position property for all these layers, we see this red text. The red values, by the way, mean that it has been influenced by expressions. That's why the numbers are red instead of white. Okay, so now that we have all of them placed in Z space, I'm going to close that by hitting P, close all my layers by hitting P. And we need to make a couple adjustments just because this doesn't look great. We probably want our camera to start a little bit closer so it doesn't look like we're so far away. Be right there. Okay, and probably what I want to do is go in here and take a couple of my words like extra stellar. Who knew that that was a space word, right? It's not wanting me to click it anymore because I think I grabbed, what did I do? I think I grabbed my grid. I'm going to lock my grid. I'm going to go to the grid layer and I'm going to click the lock so that I don't accidentally select it. Now I'm going to try again to get extra stellar and I'm going to move it down on the y-axis so I can balance. Here, let's less than again. So I can balance out my words a little bit. It seems to be a little bit middle heavy. I'm going to take moon and I'm going to move that up. So you can feel free to customize as you will. Let's see, I think I have this sphere. Yeah, that's okay. I'm going to move these circles up a little bit. Oh, my fan is starting to spin up. I don't know if you can hear that. But I'm going to move these things up and try to balance this out a little bit more. I would like you to take the composition. Now, again, this is completely randomly generated, so you're going to have to add a little bit of the designer's eye because math and computers can't do it all. Can't believe I just said that out loud. Okay. Anyway, you can take more time than I will during this tutorial. However, let's take a look at how this looks. Let's go back to one view. Let's hit Option / move this down a little bit. And preview what we've got so far. Let's see, normally something happens at this point when I preview. Let's try, maybe it's loading. It doesn't say that it's loading things. Let's try hitting that. There we go. Looks like we're going to run into the word spectral. I probably want to move spectral up a little bit. I don't really like it when my After Effects camera goes directly through an object in 3D space. And you know what, it looks like I need, well, you know what, I don't mind the grid being at the very back. I probably want to move a few of my circles farther to the middle though, and maybe move these three a little bit closer in Z space to the camera. Okay, let's go back to 0 on our timeline, and let's attempt to select these 3 circles. Let's go to 2 views, horizontal, and let's, you know what, we can actually just remove the expression on this layer. Okay, little power user tip here. If you would like to select in your timeline the layer you have selected in the composition to bring it to the top, you can hit the letter X and it will bring your layer to the top. Oops, as soon as you select it though, which one was that? I'm going to have to reselect it. Is that it? Okay. Let's hit P to reveal the position property, and then I'm going to to eliminate the expression. I could, probably the easiest way at this point is just to select the expression and delete it, although you can disable it with some of those little switches there. Okay, so layer 16 no longer has an expression tied to it, which means I can move it wherever I would like. Move it down there. I'm going to move this circle over a little bit and up so that I can fly through that. Which one did I say? Spectral? Was that the one that needed to be moved? I'm going to move it down, actually. Move spectral down. Okay, quick scrub through. By the way, make sure you have the window you want to preview selected. See these little photo corners here, these little triangles, blue triangles? That means this pane, the right side of my window is selected, and when I preview, that will preview. If you don't have it previewed, like if I wanted to see what was happening over here and I hit RAM preview, I wouldn't be able to see anything because this one was still selected. So make sure you have the right pane selected before you RAM preview. All right, I think we're pretty good. Good to go. Let's add our up and down movement on our camera, and then I will show you how to add trim paths to our circles, and then we'll be done. BKB Space Cam. I'm going to hit U to reveal all of the keyframed properties, and I'm going to scrub maybe about, let's see, let's put about maybe 3 keyframes throughout here, maybe 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to scrub a little bit farther forward. 10 divided by 3 is 3.3. Well, no, I'm adding, yeah, we need 4, so 2.5. Just doing math out loud. Okay. Let's move, if you remember from class, to move just the camera, not the point of interest, from the street exercise, or the colorful shapes in space exercise, we deselect. The easiest way to grab just a little camera box is to deselect and just grab the box. So this is what I'm going to do right here. I'm going to do that, just not too far up, but just to give it a little bit of interest. I'm going to jump another 2.5 seconds to the middle. I'm going to deselect my camera box and go down. Not too much. I'm going to go another 2.5 seconds. 7:15, command left arrow to get back to 7:15. And I'm going to drag my camera just by the box up. Remember, if I drag the camera with one of the arrows, the point of interest will move in sync with it, reminding you of your favorite early 90s boy band. And no one wants that. At least not in this case. All right, let's select this pane. Let's try to hit the space bar to see if it feels like it does not feel like it. I need to, let's see, shortcut space bar. There it is in plain English. Not sure why it's working. Not working. Okay. Kind of looks like we're on a ship on the ocean. All right, this is working pretty well. Again, if I were doing this, if I were you, a student, and I were doing this, I would take more time to arrange these things and maybe push more of them a little bit closer or farther to the left, just to get it to look great the whole way through. But I don't want to spend 3 hours on this thing, so I'm going to leave it to you guys. All right, so let's take, now it doesn't have to look exactly like my example. So I'm going to take, let's see how long this circle stays on screen as we scrub through. What I want to do, I want to grab it, put it up here, and I'll probably push it back in space just a little bit. Oops. Hello. Well, this is fun. Let me try reselecting it. You're seeing the breakdown of my computer right in front of your very eyes. It is not wanting me to move this back in Z space, or forward for that matter. How about we hit X so that it reveals it in our timeline. Let's hit P, and let's just move it ourselves. Let's remove the expression. I'm going to option click the stopwatch again, get rid of that expression. I'll see it moved it way back to its original location. I'm going to move it. Let's zoom out here. I'm glad I'm having these problems because you may have similar problems and you will now know how to solve them a little bit better. Let's grab that. It probably wasn't moving because of the expression. I needed to remove it first. Okay. Sorry, I hope you can hear me over the fan that's spinning away. I think in the example we had multiple layers of circles twirling, so we're going to have to make some duplicates. Okay, with this circle selected, let's move forward in space a little bit. Okay, so with this layer selected, we're going to turn it into a shape layer. So we're going to go to Layer, Create Shapes from Vector Layer. It's going to hide our Illustrator layer, and it's going to generate a new shape layer right at the top here, which I'm going to drag below my camera just because that's the way I like to organize my After Effects files. I'm going to flip down the shape layer twirly. I'm going to flip down Contents. I'm going to see that I have a group 1. And let's zoom in a little bit on this comp. I don't really like how thin this stroke is, so I'm going to flip down Stroke, and I'm going to say Stroke Width 2. There we go, now we can see it. And I'm also going to, here, let's leave that open, and let's close Group 1. I'm going to duplicate Group 1 by hitting Command D, and I'm going to make another group called Group 3, and then I'm going to go to Group 2. I'm going to go to Transform Group 2. I'm going to go to Scale. And let's see, is that going to scale down our stroke as well? Looks like it did. What was our stroke on Group 1? Okay, it's showing that it's 2, but since the scale, well, you can see that the relationship between scale and stroke doesn't work the same way that it does in Illustrator. So maybe I bump up the stroke width on Group 2 to 3 to try to visually match the thickness. There we go, that's a little bit better. Let's go to Group 3, let's go to Stroke 1. You know what, let's scale it first. Let's go to Transform Group 3. You know what we could do? Let me try something here. Instead of, no, that's going to do the same thing. Okay, let's just use Scale. Let's drag Scale on Group 3 down. It's not going to be equidistant, all these circles. So let's do that, and let's bump up the stroke width on Group 3's stroke to just like 2.5 maybe. That is good enough for this exercise. You get the idea, hopefully. Okay, let's close up Group 3, Group 2, and Group 1. We now have 3 strokes that we've generated from the same shape layer. Let's now go to this Add drop-down. Every shape layer has it. Add Trim Paths. Now, since this Trim Paths operation is outside of my 3 groups in the Contents folder, it is going to affect all of them. So what we want to do is go to Trim Multiple Shapes. We want to set that to individually. We are also, and this works, I believe we've done this in class, but let's bump up our start to, say, 25% maybe. Let's set our end to 75 or 70. See what that does for us. Okay, now you see how all of our circles individually, because we're trimming individually, have a different start and a different end. The reason we're not leaving it at 0 and 100 is because what we're going to do next to have them rotate around, you would not be able to see any movement if they were a whole circle. Let's see, what's happening here with What is that? Group 2 is being stubborn. Let's see what happens when we scrub offset. Okay, it's cooperating. So basically what we're doing is going to animate offset. Now let's zoom out a little bit. Let's hit Option/, and let's go back to 0, and let's see how soon. You know what, we better just do it the whole time, because the eagle-eyed among you will notice that the circles aren't turning if we don't do that. And you know what, let's keyframe offset at 0 on our timeline, and let's go to the very end. Let's go just a little bit past, actually, so it'll be sure to run the whole time. And let's type in, I don't know, 3 full rotations. Let's see what that does. Let's go to one view. And I better click this button so it actually, that's really weird. I need to fix that. Why is it struggling to RAM preview? Fine, we'll do a scrub through. I want to move this shape layer farther to the left so that we can see it longer during our fly through. What do you think about that? And maybe I'm gonna leave it there. We will leave it there. Option Command left arrow goes to 0 on our timeline. Try this RAM preview again. Okay, I need to dump my RAM. Edit, purge, all memory, and disk cache. 5.8 gigs. It should be able to deal with that. Let's try RAM previewing. Control-0 is a good way to RAM preview on a laptop, by the way. Control-0 is the same as spacebar for RAM preview. If you have it set to that, I should say. You know what I don't like? I don't have anything down here. I think I'm going to move a word. Maybe we move spectral down and to the left a little bit. Wow, the fan's really spinning right now. Yeah, I think we need to move spectral down. Anyway, what do we think about the speed of the spinning circles? It's really frustrating that my shortcuts aren't working. I'm just going to have to go with Control-0. Yeah, I think for space, those circles are moving about the right size, right speed. Okay. All right, if you can get this close, you will be good to go. Let's just move spectral down because we don't like our words floating around in space and not being balanced, not having the appearance of randomness. Know what else I don't like? That these circles go out of frame so fast. Let me put this one here. This one here. Now I think it's because they're so close to the camera, so maybe we do this. Maybe we do this and we move them back. Oops, you know what? We learned our lesson, didn't we? We're going to hit X to find it and make it go to the top. And we're going to reveal the position by P, and we're going to option click the stopwatch to remove the expression. And that actually moved it back automatically, so that's convenient. This one's a little bit way far out there. So as you can see, true randomness doesn't always suit your needs all the time. It certainly helps, but it's not perfect. Let's hit all, let's hit U. Let's see, U. U reveals and then collapses. Reveals all keyframed properties on a layer and then it collapses all your layers. It does both. Let's go to one view. Okay, I think we're good to go. I think we're going to call this a night, people. All right. I hope you've enjoyed this journey through space with your host, Brent Barson.